Have you ever wondered how a single ancient poem could possibly survive thousands of years and somehow still shape the way we think about politics today? Well, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most monumental pieces of literature in human history, the Ramayana. We're not just going to recount the story here. We're going to look at how this epic evolved over centuries and unpack the really profound lessons it holds about statecraft, governance, and human nature. By the end of this, you'll see exactly how a text from ancient India continues to act as a mirror for our modern society.
It's a pretty fascinating question, right? I mean, how does a 24,000-verse poem from antiquity still influence our modern philosophy? How does it still shape our understanding of duty, or what's right and wrong? The answer doesn't just lie in its legendary characters, but in the deep, structural laws of society that the epic examines.
And when I say massive, I mean it's literally monumental. 24,000, that is the number of couplet verses known as shlokas in the original Sanskrit epic traditionally attributed to the sage Valmiki. To put that into perspective for you, it is one of the absolute largest ancient epics in all of world literature. It's like a towering pillar of knowledge packed with teachings on the ultimate goals of human life.
So, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with the great Indian epic itself, take a journey through its main chapters or khandas, and then dive deep into anarchy and statecraft. After that, we'll look at the evolving texts and traditions and wrap things up with a really fascinating final chapter debate.
All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, the Great Indian Epic. The core narrative here revolves around Rama. He's a prince of Ayodhya in the ancient kingdom of Kosala. The story basically follows his 14-year exile into the forest. This was a massive, life-altering shift urged by his father, King Dasharatha, at the request of Rama's stepmother. So Rama goes on this arduous journey across the subcontinent, accompanied by his devoted wife, Sita, and his fiercely loyal brother, Lakshmana.
Moving right along to Section 2, Journey through the Khandas. Now, because this poem is so unimaginably huge, it needs structure. Valmiki divided the epic into major chapters called khandas. You can think of each khanda as a distinct phase of Rama's life, like stepping through a series of grand archways that move the story from his early days all the way to the climax.
The story flows incredibly logically. It starts in the Balakanda with Rama's birth and youth. Then things get tense in the Ayodhya Kanda with his sudden exile. The Aranyakanda brings absolute tragedy. This is where Sita is abducted by Ravana, the powerful king of Lanka. Next, in the Kishkindanda Kanda, Rama builds a crucial alliance with the Vanaras, a race of forest-dwelling beings, including the incredibly devoted Hanuman and King Sugriva.
In all of this tension, it totally explodes in the Yuddhakanda, the Great War. It's an epic sequence. First, Rama's army literally builds a bridge of floating stones, the Ramasetu, across the ocean to reach Lanka. During the battle, when Lakshmana is mortally wounded, Hanuman takes this colossal leap to the Himalayas to find a life-saving herb. And he doesn't just bring the herb, he brings back the entire mountain. Ultimately, this culminates in the final defeat of Ravana, the rescue of Sita, and a new king crowned in Lanka.
Okay, let's shift gears into Section 3, Anarchy and Statecraft. We're moving from the story itself into the deep philosophy embedded within it. See, the Ramayana isn't just an adventure tale. It is a masterclass in politics, ethics, and why we as humans absolutely need organized government.
It's amazing how modern academics view this. For instance, contemporary journals highlight that the Ayodhya Kanda is actually a highly organized discourse on statecraft. It's essentially an eternal warning against the dangers of anarchy. It breaks down the qualities of good leadership and explores exactly how to stop human society from descending into total chaos.
To really grasp this, we need to look at an ancient concept called Matsya Nyaya, which translates to the law of the fish. Think of it like this. Imagine a giant schoolyard with 0 teachers, no rules, and absolutely no authority. What happens? Pretty quickly, the biggest, strongest bullies start picking on the smaller kids. That's the law of the fish. Big fish eating small fish. The text argues that without a strong, authoritative state, the strong will always prey on the weak, leading to a complete breakdown of society.
This is summed up so perfectly and chillingly by a quote right out of the Ayodhya Kanda. People always devour one another. That shows you the deep-seated fear ancient societies had of arajakatva, or anarchy. Long before Western thinkers like Thomas Hobbes were saying life without government is nasty, brutish, and short, the Ramayana was warning us. It shows that without authority, property rights vanish and social contracts crumble. Even in the forest, The epic shows demons freely attacking innocent sages, proving that without a state to control violence, you just get moral chaos.
All right, Section 4, Evolving Texts and Traditions. Since the epic started as an oral tradition, it wasn't frozen in time. It grew, it adapted, and it spread across different regions over centuries, taking on new flavors. Today, we're going to impartially look at the two most famous versions, the ancient Valmiki Ramayana and the 16th century Ramcharitmanas by the poet Tulsidas.
The differences in structure and history here are pretty striking. Sage Valmiki's version was composed way back in antiquity, written in Sanskrit using a poetic meter called sloka. Fast forward centuries later to the 1500s, and Tulsidas writes his version in Awadhi, a regional language, using a format called chopai. Even the details change. For example, Valmiki writes that King Dasharatha had 350 wives, while Tulsidas brings that number down to just 3 main wives.
But the most crucial shift between these texts is how they actually characterize Rama. In Valmiki's original epic, Rama is very much human. He's the Maryada Purushottam, the ideal man with exceptional virtues, but still a man who struggles with real human emotions. However, by the time Tulsidas is writing, the theological landscape has totally shifted. Tulsidas portrays Rama explicitly as a divine avatar, an incarnation of Lord Vishnu who comes to Earth specifically to establish dharma and wipe out evil.
And that brings us to our final section, the final chapter debate. Let's look objectively at a really massive scholarly dispute. There's a major debate over the authenticity of the epic's very last chapter, called the Uttarakanda. The big question is, did Valmiki actually write it, or was it tacked on centuries later by someone else entirely?
Scholars who argue that it was added later point to a few really compelling pieces of evidence. First off, this final chapter, it's completely missing from the oldest surviving manuscripts. Second, right at the start of the epic, Sage Narada gives a quick summary of the whole story, and he never mentions a single event from the Uttarakanda. Third, the story feels like it naturally ends at chapter 6 with Rama Raja, the ideal, peaceful reign. And finally, the last chapter has some weird chronological contradictions. Like, it features Ravana killing an envoy, even though earlier in the epic it explicitly states that killing an envoy is strictly forbidden and unheard of. And this hits right at the heart of the debate. Does this final chapter contradict the core values of the original epic? You see, the Uttarakanda includes some highly controversial moments, like Rama abandoning Sita after they return home, or the unjust killing of an ascetic. A lot of scholars argue that these actions completely fly in the face of Valmiki's original depiction of a consistently righteous and noble Rama. They suggest that later writers probably grafted this chapter on to reflect the changing social norms of their own time rather than Valmiki's original vision.
So, let's do a quick recap. We've explored the massive 24,000-verse scale of the Ramayana. We've followed Rama's journey through the Khandas, unpacked the ancient dread of anarchy, looked at how the story evolved from Valmiki to Tulsidas, and even waded into the academic debate over its final chapter. Which leaves us with one final, really provocative thought. If this incredible epic continually adapts to teach humanity about governance, order, and virtue, what modern values will shape its next evolution? Thank you so much for joining this explainer, and as always, keep learning.